In this video series, Ray Outfitted has been stripping back a full build that was brought to us because of the fundamental flaws in how the vehicle was upfitted. In the last episode, we took down the ceiling and upper cabinets nearly without any tools, which really reinforced the problems of this upfit. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the water damage of the subfloor and see how much damage there has been in the last 6 months of usage.
So our next step is to remove the subfloor and see what the damage is underneath. We're starting to remove the screws that hold it down. We're hoping not to actually find any water underneath. That would be a bad sign, seeing as how long this vehicle has been without water and all the work we've already done. There is a possibility that we find mold or rust from any of the metal shavings from cutting in the windows, or any other metal work that was done inside the vehicle. The P-jug was cut through the floor. There is riv nuts inside the bottom, so wherever there's a riv nut, they had to drill through the metal, and if there were metal shavings left there, then there's a potential for rust. You can see how much water has come through this board. And then the two straps in the floor here, that's got a lot of water damage. And you can see the bolts are actually starting to rust inside. I can see rust starting in the front corner here. You can see it's still wet. There's still water in here. That's going to start to mold, and you're going to have health issues being inside this van. On the aspect of repairability that we've been trying to preach in this whole thing, you can see they've tried to insulate nearly everything. So we see all the cans of Great Stuff spray foam that have been shoved in all these little ribs here and this horizontal rib here. See, there's a bunch of spray foam insulation that was not needed here. But you've got this vertical pillar that they didn't put anything in. So there's no point wasting all this spray foam and making this unrepairable when you didn't even bother doing this. But if you wanted to stuff some Thinsulate, which they've got everywhere else in there, you can. And then you come down to the floor, obviously these boards are probably PL'd down as well as bolted through the floor, but the foam that's been PL'd to the floor, you can't get it up without damaging the floor. So now we've got to try and get this out so that we can get the water out of this, and it's becoming a absolute nightmare. This foam underneath here didn't need to be glued. It's in framing, it's underneath everything. If this foam was squeaking, I think that would have been the least of their worries. Another option, instead of using it looks like they've used PL Premium, it's definitely a construction adhesive. You could have just put a couple dabs of silicone there. You could have put some spray glue, like Gorilla Glue or 3M Super 77, just to keep everything from moving. The other thing you could have done is maybe put a couple, they love their brad nails so much, they could have just put a couple toenails sideways to hold everything, because then when you go to lift it up, it would have just ripped out easily. Oh, that's rot. That's disgusting.
Oh yeah, I'm getting nice.
Yeah, no, there's
Right.
There's definitely mold and mildew under the floor here. I think I'm gonna have to put a respirator on.
Probably weighs about 5 pounds more than it would dry. It's completely saturated.
yummy. Yeah, that whole board is saturated there. While we're disassembling this and getting all these boards out, the amount of water that is still in all this wood after this van has not had any water put in the system since probably October, and we're currently in March. So it's been 4 or 5 months at least since water has been put into this system. So that's just telling us how much water has been leaking constantly in this van. And with the rake of the ProMaster, with the water tank being at the back and this up front, just constantly the water flow up to the front, even with the holes that are in the floor where water could have potentially escaped. It's just been running all down the subfloor and coming down into the front here and saturating and going back. Like it's crazy how much water is under here. There's a good chance this has been happening since they picked this van up originally. We've got some rust starting around this front hole where there were metal flakes that we're gonna have to at least hit with a wire wheel, clean it up, hit it with maybe some rust converter or something, and just get it all back to good enough that we feel comfortable that their floor is not gonna rust out on them. If we look back here, you can see we had to break the spray foam from around the wood back here. And as much as that is going to prevent water from getting down back here, once water gets down through this hole, which we can see it did, it has nowhere to go other than just stay in the floor. And like this board here is almost as rotten as the one up front was. All this glue that's on these boards just prevented any air from being able to get to it and dry out. All the saturation of these boards is unreal. Might go with it this way.
1, 2, 3.
That's another way to do it. Close. Right underneath the water tank, it's gone down through the foam in the corner and just gone right into the wood. So we're looking at this here. This is back where the back of the water tank was. We got some black mold there. You can see the plywood starting to delaminate. Got some white mold starting here. So that's just not good. We'll get this out of here as fast as we can.
In this video series, we've shown you the disassembly process. We filmed this in real time as we were working, and so you do get to see a bunch of our genuine surprise. Some of the biggest takeaways from removing this floor, it really sums up the challenge and mistake that we can have when we're upfitting vans. Gluing down this foam was unnecessary. With everything that was going to be put on top of it, it would have been secured in place. By gluing it down this much, it's made it that much more challenging for you to make any adjustments. It's a vehicle. If an automotive manufacturer delivered you a vehicle that you needed to have a guy with a snow shovel scraping out parts to be able to fix a mistake, you'd be really, really mad. And so ultimately, and our recommendation is you always want to think about future you, how much future you will appreciate past you. Plan for repairability, plan for accessibility. Imagine it needing to come back apart. It's a vehicle. It really might need to come back apart. I don't think the upfitters of this van or the other upfitters we're seeing online doing similar builds are genuinely meaning to build vehicles that are unsafe at any speed. But this van would have been unsafe at any speed. Watching Ryan do 1 or 2 good tugs on the ceiling to have it come crashing down. The most common damage a high-sided vehicle gets is when the owner mistakenly backs into a building overhang. And so that tug that Ryan gave is actually something that could very realistically happen just driving. In fact, Rainer did that in our Sprinter.
Yes.
And it was a good hit, and it did serious damage to the body of the vehicle. Our upfit wasn't impacted by it, nothing had shifted inside, but seeing how that came crashing down, I imagine the owners of this van would have backed in, hit, and had a ceiling potentially come down.
Maybe even some cabinets.
Maybe the upper cabinet. Custom van upfits were meant to be like better than RV. That RVs were expensive and they're made out of veneer and plastic.
It's different than an RV, but not better.
The phrasing of those standards in the book. What did it say? It said,
it's like intentionally vague.
make an effort to reduce the potential for loss of life and injury. An effort, make an effort. And I look at this van and think, I don't think it crossed their mind. I don't think it was intentional to make it so one somewhat strong guy can pull it apart. I think they were so focused on making it look pretty. The few screw heads they have, there was a sticker covering it. They were trying so hard to make it that like Instagram picture perfect. What they needed to invest in, what everyone in this community needs to invest in, is that safety, durability, repairability.
The common theme that we found with this vehicle is that the bones on the very outside of the upfit were all done well. The floor was secured well, the strapping on the sides was secured very well, but the cabinets seemed to be built more household grade and weren't secured to the walls as nice as we would have liked to see. Therefore, in a collision, could have caused severe damage or bodily harm.
There is decades of innovation that have gone into vehicles to try to make them less deadly, and still vehicle collisions is a leading way that people get injured and die. This is a vehicle, it's dangerous, and by deciding to put your whole home or your whole camper inside of it and do that with less experience and less industry standards is even riskier. I think it's really important to know that it's hard to make a vehicle safe, and therefore it is really, really hard to make an upfit safe. It's important to invest time in making sure your plan has thought through the realities and those hazards, and that you are truly accepting the risks that this brings in. If an upfitter doesn't want to show you an in-progress build, if an upfitter doesn't want to let you see methodologies or can't answer some of those questions, it's a red flag. And the more you understand what an in-progress build looks like, I think it'll be easier to look at the finished product with a different eye. Not just about how pretty, but zoom in and, well, how do they access the water? How do they access the heat? How do they access the electrical? What happens if, pick any piece of the upfit breaks, how would that get fixed? There's lots of businesses that they are set up and the first few vans are for their friends under contract to promote the upfits. And so in those early months, that is an indicator of a level of success. But this van lasted 3 months and we've now shown that there wasn't any quality in it. And so I think it's very important to look at that longer term and see seasonality usage, see longer term. And I think it's important to understand and make sure you're aware, has your upfitter been doing this for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years?
We know people buying RVs that aren't going to get them for 1 to 2 years. And people just want to hear that they'll be on the road in 4 or 5 months, where in reality, if you can get on the road that fast, why can you get on the road that fast when no one else can?
We're a little nervous at this notion that there has been a gold rush in terms of new upfitters cropping up, and they're already shutting down in some places or changing their business names so they can avoid some of the repercussions of the lack of long-term wearability. This van was upfitted less than a year ago, and the only logical way forward with the hazards and the issues with it is to gut it and rebuild it. And that makes it maybe twice as expensive, maybe more. The nature of building custom vans, meaning that each one is different, means that there's a development phase and a creativity required. That because it's not the same upfit going into every van, we're not an assembly line, We're far closer to artists trying to figure out how to play the Tetris game that every van requires, and figure out what's the best way to achieve the functional requirements of it. And this takes much more time because there's learning to be done before you make next steps, before you put in that bolt, before you cut that hole. Make sure that we are doing what is truly in the best interest of that vehicle, of its usage. It's worthwhile to consider the design and the options. At Ray Outfitted, we offer no obligation consultations, where you don't have to have your vehicle or even have a firm notion of what your upfit is. What we use these consultations often for is to just give the opportunity to discuss the realities of the vehicles. Come see our shop, come see what upfits we're working on, talk about it. When we get to hear your specific visions, we're able to share our insights, our experience, what training we've gone through that can inform and better support your upfit. You don't have to hire us for any work. You don't have to hire us for the full build. We collaborate. Our desire is truly to be able to share information and make sure that clients we work with are able to make informed decisions and informed estimates. The notion that this van was this long-term dream and they didn't get a full camping season out of it is really devastating. They never actually got to enjoy it before things started going wrong. And it breaks my heart to think that someone so excited for van life didn't get to have the super highs and the amazing adventures, but they spent all of the money and had all of this pain. I don't think anyone upfits a vehicle thinking, well, hopefully I'll get one summer out of it. I think everyone has far longer term notions and visions of what these camper vans will be. I know many of our clients talk about passing them on to their kids when they get their driver's license. And so the fact that this upfit achieved less than one camping season on such low mileage is really unfortunate on one hand. On the other hand, having seen the build quality, I'm quite grateful the van has such little mileage on it, because that reduced their chances of ever being in a collision or needing to slam on their brakes, because it would have been quite dangerous. And so this van represented, I think, a lot of dreaming for the couple. And so as they worked with us and came to visit us for different repairs, and when we got to the stage where we understood some of the broader systemic issues, to share with them our prediction and fears of the risk of needing to disassemble the entire upfit. It was incredibly emotional. It was difficult for them to process. This is a loss that's really hard to describe, and it has been weighing quite heavily on us as we've worked through the journey. They spent a lot of money on a vehicle. They spent a lot of time getting it to their upfitter, planning these trips, making their plans, investing in the upfit, and to have this be the outcome a year later, it's expensive, it's heartbreaking. When the van arrived for this disassembly, the word they used was traumatizing, and it seems very accurate of a way, because it's been truly heartbreaking to know someone tried to do right and ended up in such a unfortunate position. I greatly respect and admire the clients, the owners of this van, because they at every step chose the right thing, despite that being harder and more expensive and more painful. When we first gave them our concerns of this upfit might not age well, we did explain to them that what's most common in the van community is when you know there's a problem coming in a van, people flip them. They sell them to someone else so they don't have to deal with it. And the owners of this van said they would never do that to someone. They wouldn't want to put someone else through the traumas they had. They tried using the van for a bit longer before it ultimately had its critical failures that have led to here. And again, we explained you could sell it as is in its broken state and let someone else make the assessment of how broken, how repairable, that they don't need to disclose everything. And that it's certainly quite common. And they once again chose that that's the wrong thing, that they would not wish what they have been going through on anyone else. And so when we proposed the idea of filming this series and sharing these insights and lessons, they were quite supportive and open to it. At the thought that this video could save one person, one couple, from the pain they've gone through. As they loaded up their personal possessions out of the van, both of them had a lot of emotion, and we it was a very heavy and difficult time. That ultimately, our hope is that for the owners of this upfit, that this brings some closure to know that no one will be harmed by this, and that there's a chance that this video series can save someone else a painful time. And so I want to express my gratitude from the bottom of my heart to be given the opportunity to share this, and I hope these videos can bring some safety to a lot more people.